Welcome to Backstage with Kennedy. This little show will be your remedy. From Toronto, spanning across the sea. Cool people, lots of laughs. This is your favorite podcast.
Welcome, my name's Kennedy from the Backstage with Kennedy podcast. I got a really cool guest today. It's Yotam from Useless ID. I am a big fan of this band. I got into them at a little bit of a later point, but one thing I did do when I found out about the band is I did take a big deep dive into their discography. So it was kind of really natural when they just released this new album, which is a greatest hits album, and it kind of allowed me to, revisit everything again. So I am really appreciative for Yotam coming on the podcast today. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. How are things over there right now? I know that you're kind of opening up a little bit, right? I've talked to Corey from Kids Insane probably about a month ago now, and he said at that point things were starting to get back to normal. So are you guys in the clear now, or what's going on?
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm in California right now.
You're in the U.S.
Yeah, I'm in the U.S. I'm not even in Israel.
Okay.
But from what I understood, things are opening up, and pretty much most of the population is vaccinated, and it looks like things are good to go. It's funny. A buddy of mine told me that they started, sending missiles over. The bombing started, and it's funny how humans work. When there's a global pandemic going on, so everyone kind of forgets about wars and is just dealing with staying alive and being hopeful about everything. But once that's done, it's like, all right, let's go back to our normal business. Let's start, being at war again. It's nuts.
It's insane. Yeah. I mean, I was seeing videos from Israel on Corey's Instagram today, and I was like, man, like what's going on? Like, and I know it's not just Israel; it is everywhere that this kind of stuff's going on with all the racism and all that.
Yeah.
It'd be stupid to think otherwise. But yeah, it's insane. You're right. Once something starts to clear up, everything comes back again, right? So, so enough about all that stuff.
That's right.
So you released this new album, I believe it was last Friday, the greatest hits album, the most useless songs. So, how was that how was that making it for you? Was it like a compilation more or less, or did you re-record everything?
Oh, it's a compilation. Some of the original mixes were kind of hard to track down. We tracked down some of them, but I think for No Vacation from the World, that album, we had a problem finding the original mixes to get remastered. So, but luckily we have Jason Livermore from the Blasting Room. That he's a master of sounds, so he was able to make everything sound great together. It's pretty much the songs that stuck with us throughout the years. We look at the crowd responses. In Japan, people cry from this song, At Least I Tried. And I know that State of Fear has been a staple from the moment we wrote it. It's been like this one anthemic sing-along at our shows. And we're not like one of those sing-along bands. I think we're more like songwriting based. We always look out to write the best song and not like something that everyone's gonna lose their shit live.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a mix of those,
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys have been around since the early 90s. Obviously, other than making great music, what do you think has been like the key to success for Useless ID? Was it just being consistent throughout this whole thing and making good music as well? Or what was your key, do you think?
I think it has a lot to do with being persistent on on what you're after and not giving up, because we know, well, let's face it, being in a band you're not entering an easy world. Some may get lucky, but with us, it's always been through hard work. It's the hard work, and every time there was a reward for this hard work, it just made us want to keep going, and we just love it. So So it's basically like the key I mean, being a band from Israel is already insane in itself. Like you, to put yourself on the map and get people to notice you, and years of the bothering labels and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And I think we started out being a decent uh, pop punk band. Like we were okay,
Hmm.
and once I started singing, I think we were still decent. We were good. It took us quite a while. I think only in the album Redemption we really kind of fell into our own thing, and from there it just like progressed. And I felt we kept, and it still feels to this day like every album we put out, we always feel it's the best. It's our best album. It's like oh we just did something newer this time. We just like so yeah. The key is persistence. Like
Yeah,
never give up.
I love that. I love that. There's something I was thinking about. I was saying, what should I ask you, Tom, today? What is something that was on my mind? So obviously you guys are huge in Israel, and you are huge around the world as well. But do you find that you have a lot of Israeli fans throughout the world? Like when you do shows in, say, places like the United States or Canada, do you find that you do have quite a big crowd of Israeli people?
That's the thing. I think we don't like normally like I would say uh, a couple of Israelis like Israeli people would show up, but
Hmm.
the majority of our crowd is based in the place that we're playing the show at. Like if we're
Okay.
playing a show in Los Angeles, like at the Redwood or something like that. So it's like you know Fat Records fans and
Yeah.
people that know of us or discovered us through like a compilation or or from the Kung Fu Records days.
Hmm.
So yeah, we don't have that thing in our band that if we come to the U.S. we're playing for the Israeli community.
Yeah.
Many Israeli artists do that, and that it's never been our thing. We were always like a global band.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We were never the band to come all the way from Israel and like wave the flag. Hey, we're here. We're from Israel,
Yeah.
the best, holy land. No, we it just so happens that we were born there,
Yeah.
and but we play punk rock. Our language is music.
Absolutely. That's an international language in itself. Is
Yeah,
punk rock right there, right?
no dividers, man.
Absolutely. So, Fat Records. You mentioned them briefly there. It's been quite a few years since you signed to them, but I mean, Fat Mike was always really, really outspoken about you guys. Like he loved you right off the jump. How has it been working with him, and how has it been working with that entire label as a whole?
I mean, with Fat Mike, I saw him like 2 days ago. I feel like even when I didn't know Fat Mike, it's like he's from the moment we got into this. I guess it was pretty early on. We knew of him, and like I don't know, a year or two later, we met up for the first time. That was like 20 something years ago. So it's like he's been there for every step of the way with us, always giving us pointers, always telling, like, kind of like pointing us in the right direction. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because it's very easy to get lost in the mix, especially if you're playing this style of music. So he would say things like, "You guys are from Israel. I don't know any political punk bands from Israel that exist now.
Yeah.
So why don't you sing a bit about like what's going on in your country? I
Hmm.
think people would be really interested in that, as opposed to if I continue singing about like my personal issues and
Hmm.
things that could come off as a bit generic at times. Uh, but even with these personal issues, I do my best to kind of tell an interesting story and not just say, "Oh, this person hurt my feelings, so I did this and I did that." It's like, so he was good at that. He was good at like pointing us in the direction with an album like "State Is Burning,"
Hmm.
which I think that's his favorite Useless ID record. He's like, that should have been your first record, not your eighth. Yeah.
How so the drummers, you've had quite a bit of drummers in your band. I mean, there has been a lot of like fluctuation in your lineup over the years, but I mean, for the most part, you guys have stayed pretty consistent with your core base of performers. how many drummers is on this new album? And do you find like when you do live shows and stuff now, like because of the influx of drummers, it's been like tough to keep everybody on the same line, or do you feel like you've just been like getting really good drummers who are able to adapt very quickly?
Well, for example, Corey,
Yeah.
I've been playing with him in a band for almost 10 years, like a hardcore band called Spit. So
Hmm.
me and him, we have that chemistry already. So him joining, I mean, Ishai has a band with Corey as well. So Corey joining Useless ID as like when the previous drummer left was a no-brainer. It's like, yeah, let's get Corey, and he fit in right away. He's just so great, and and he looks good when he plays live. That's important. You need like a guy that is bringing it down. But yeah, I think for the most part we've had really good drummers. Like starting in 2004, we've had like a bit of like differences with other drummers that like kind of weren't really on the same page as us.
Hmm.
But I mean, Gideon was great, Harpak was great. Even the guy that played on Redemption, he was, he did a great job.
Yeah.
So so yeah, I think let's just put it this way. I think recording these two new songs with Corey kind of like gave us an appetite to make more music with Corey, to kind of like get his stamp on the Useless ID collection.
Perfect. Yeah, he's a very good, very great guy. And one thing that caught my eye, he actually name dropped Useless ID in the interview I did with him previously, and he was saying he looked up to you guys. So I know that that's really cool for him to be able to start off in the scene and then kind of make his way and end up working with you guys down the road. That's pretty damn cool. So I know he was happy to do that for sure.
Yeah, Corey is a total sweetheart. I mean, even with music and without music, every time I'm in Israel, I meet him up and we
Yeah.
just get coffee and talk and shoot the shit. I think he's well, the Ramones kind of said it when CJ Ramon joined the band, because they were like, well, I wouldn't say old, but I'm guessing they were well in their 40s. So they were like, CJ revived our band. He made us want to go for more years. So I think that's what Corey did to us. He like brought in this. It's like with every drummer. Every time we like a new guy comes in, it's like it kind of like changes the sound a bit of the band, but for the best, because the new drummer kind of brings his influences along.
Hmm.
And with Corey, it's great because he comes from our world. He comes from Black Flag and Minor Threat and Gorilla Biscuits and
Hell yeah.
Bad Religion and all that stuff. So if I tell him do that Gorilla Biscuits thing, so he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Do the Bad Religion beat, he knows. So it's we don't even have to talk sometimes.
Yeah. So a buddy of mine, I've never had the pleasure to see Useless ID live, but a friend of mine and I were talking a couple of days ago, and he was mentioning that he saw you and you play with Pairs,
Yeah.
and he said that was one of the sickest shows he's ever seen.
Wow.
Um, what is your favorite show that you have played with Useless ID? Obviously, there's so many, and there is so many memorable shows, but which one really catches your heart as like, hey, this was it for me?
Well, I think it's split into a few different types of shows.
Yeah.
One is every time we come back from tour, if we're touring anywhere and we play a hometown show in Israel, there's always a special feeling in the air. Like everyone's getting together, and it's like people that we haven't seen in a while and friends of 20 years that come out every once in a while to show. So it's like one big reunion, and we just have that click with the Israeli crowd. Um, Japan, one time we did this show that was called like a one man show or something like that, and we had to fill up like an hour and something worth of songs. So I think we played like 45 songs, and yeah, and I was just dripping, and I remember like once we finished the show, I just like poured a bottle of water on myself, and I'm like, it doesn't get better than this. But at the same time, and that was like a club show, but at the same time, the first time we played with this band, Die Toten Hosen, they took us on tour, and they're huge in Germany. So they told us we would be playing to 12 to 17,000 people a night. So I remember that first show going on that stage after they introduced us and seeing that sea of people. That's a crazy feeling. You know, I don't think we've experienced that up until that point. That was in 2012. That was in 2012. So
That's
almost 10 years.
that's wicked. That's wicked. Yeah. So it's an awesome history you guys have as a band, and there's so many things I truly could ask you. Um, but like yeah, like I really like to dive into the stage presence aspect, and the performing aspect. Obviously you mentioned those are the most memorable. Is there anything that like was like hilarious that happened maybe on tour or during a show once that you're like, I can't believe that happened?
Yeah, one time we played a show in Italy, and one person. This was like in 2000, I think. We did this tour with the Ataris and the Vandals, and we played somewhere in Italy. I'm sure Ishai remembers exactly where because he's so good with these things. But someone spit on me from the crowd, and I was like, "Oh, you spit on me, I'll spit on you." So I spat back. I tried to spit back at the crowd, and while I'm doing that, I noticed both Ishai and Guy uh, slowly walking behind their amps, and I'm like, "What are they doing?" And then I get like this sea of spit back at me, and that's when I realized you don't spit back at the crowd. You're not supposed to do that, you know. So I was kind of like a rookie in that, but that was like one of those. Okay, uh, even if someone's spitting on you, you could just say, "Okay, guys, you don't have to do that." But to spit back at the crowd, no.
Well, I think it could have been a lot worse. You know what I mean? You could have GG Allen'd it, and that would have
Oh,
been
you
game
know what?
over.
You know what? It became a lot worse when NoFX showed up in Israel. NoFX, they played a show in Jerusalem and the crowd spit on them. So they were so annoyed by that. So the next night, and we played those shows. So the next night there was like full house in Tel Aviv. It was like I don't know, 1,000 plus people at this club called the Barbie. So when Useless ID went on stage, I told the crowd, hey, so last night you were spitting at NoFX. I don't think they liked it. So if anyone has any phlegm in their mouth, you do it to me. So I'm gonna count to three, and I counted till three, and there was like this shit storm. And it's on YouTube. It's like it looks like there's a snowstorm. And
Oh man.
while I was about to say, okay, that's enough, I was like, enough. I opened my mouth, and one went in.
Oh,
So yeah, so I was dripping, and I got off stage, and Fat Mike was waiting in the backstage, and he's like, "Wow, you really took one for the team. Thank you."
so what got you into music, Yotam? Like, what was like you mentioned some of your influences and stuff like that, but what was like the point in your life where you're like, I need to play, I need to pick up an instrument, I need to sing, I need to do this.
Well, I was always into music because my mom is a music teacher, and she would go to all these like orchestras, even when I was before I was born. So, and I got to see Musical Youth when I was four, and I pretty much when my family moved to the U.S. So it was like the mid '80s. So I got into rap and hip hop, like the more I discovered music.
Hell yeah.
But my first moment that you say I had to grab an instrument, and it was the first time I heard Nirvana. I was at a party, like I think it was a bat mitzvah. You know what
Okay.
those are?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I actually used to run bar mitzvahs. I
yeah.
I am not Jewish, but I used to run bar mitzvahs like every day.
All right, yeah. So I was at a bat mitzvah, and my buddy was the DJ. It's funny to think of like a 13-year-old DJ, but that guy had some like ambitions. So he was playing all this rap and hip hop that of the time. I don't know, like Crisscross or whatever it was. And then this song came on, and it just blew me away. It was Lithium, and I was like, oh my god, this is so great. Why do I like it so much? So and then when I saw how Nirvana looked, so I was just like, I don't know, like obsessed or like possessed. I think possessed is the word, and I decided I wanted a guitar right then and there. That kind of set me on that path.
That's wicked. And you don't just play in bands. Like you do a lot of background stuff as well. I know that you did work on the Kids Insane album. I know that you did some work for NoFX and the Bomb Pops. Like you're consistently out there in the engineering and mixing and mastering aspect. Um, do you really enjoy that part of like the process? Would you say that's your favorite part, or are you more of a guy who's like, you know what, I'd prefer to do the writing, and that will come afterwards?
All right, so let me just fix what you said. I actually engineering, mixing, and that's not my
Oh, it's producing, right?
producing. Yes,
Sorry,
I
my bad, my
produce.
bad, my
I
bad.
produce. I mean, I am well enough to engineer a project,
Yeah,
but that's like less of my thing. I feel that production. I'm really in my zone. So yeah, I worked with the Bomb Pops. I worked with this band called Crank from Czech Republic. I worked with Kids Insane, and as you mentioned, NoFX as well. Uh, yeah, I love doing it. It's especially in the artist world. It's not about like making ends meet, but I decided a few years ago that I don't want to work for bosses. I want to be my own boss, and that comes together with being creative on how to get by. So if I'm not touring, so I have to do something. So I realized that producing, I just don't even feel like I don't feel like I'm working. I'm just enjoying every minute of it. So yeah, it goes hand in hand. Everything I like it when I'm doing one thing, but it gives a hand to the other thing I'm doing. They
yeah.
kind of coexist together. So yeah, it's great. I'm fine with being in the background of things. I'm fine with being up front. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really quite impressive to see. But I mean, if I were in a band and I was like, you know what, I need a good producer, someone to really look over the whole project and kind of pick at it and make the songs better and refine them. You'd be a great person to do that. So,
Thank you.
you do a good job at that too, man.
Thank you. Hit me up if that happens.
I don't think I'll be making a band anytime soon, but you never know what's gonna happen in life.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, I can you give people a little heads up on what to expect out of the band going forward? Obviously, you just released this album. Can you tell people where they can find it? Where they can actually pay for it, things such as
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so we just released, as you mentioned, Most Useless Songs. It's out on Fat Records. You can order it through the label. Once we go back to playing shows, you can get it through us, and we'll take a picture with you, and we'll sign it if you want. And that's as far as that. But yeah, recording those new songs in the studio, it reminded me how much fun we have at the studio because we did make a record since State is Burning. We did like a few recordings, but they were like for a 7-inch or something like that. So doing these songs and kind of like digging in with the guys and changing stuff and kind of like putting everything together, I was like, maybe it shouldn't stop at this, like for now. And let's just keep writing. So I wrote, I think I have like 10 new songs that we all collectively like. But I
Sick.
think, yeah, but I think that's out of like 20 I wrote. So it's always like kind of like a percentage thing. So I think I need to write like another 10 or 15 so we have the next record.
Perfect. That's what I like to hear. More useless ID stuff coming out.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
more useless songs. Exactly.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Thanks so much, Yotam, and
Thanks for having me.
you stay safe out there, man. You have a good day, and we'll talk soon. All right, brother.
For sure. Thank you,
All
buddy.
right, brother. Thank you, man.
Buns, check.
Hot dogs, mustard check,
Ketchup.
hot stuff. Nah.
Where's the hot stuff? I didn't bring any.
Yeah.
So good with the hot stuff?
Very good with the hot stuff.